A very good evening, good noon to all of you. How are you all? I hope I'm clearly visible and audible. Tell me. Need to know this. All right, perfect then. Let's begin. Okay, so let's talk about RC passages today. Okay, so uh, I know that you guys know this that four passages can be expected in CAT, right? Four passages with four questions each. That actually makes it 16 questions. So 16 questions out of 24 is two-thirds of your paper, right? So we need to excel at RC passages. We need to be effective readers, efficient readers. I have conducted sessions about this also earlier, where I talked to you about what to read, where to read it from, how to read. We've had these sessions as well. So today our focus will be on how to understand an RC passage, how to approach an RC passage. A lot of students ask me that, what should be my again strategy or approach to read an RC passage, how to read it effectively in the given time frame that I have in the exam. So that's what we are going to learn today, how to comprehend an RC passage. Okay, so let's begin. Good noon, Pratyush, Hamza. Hi, Miss Unique. Good noon. Hello, Saksham. FMS Gem. Saksham, I'll have to get back to you on this. A good percentile, but because you're a gem, I have to get back to you on this. Okay. Good noon, Pushkar. Good noon. Hi, Kumaresan. I cannot switch those on, Pushkar. I cannot switch those on, the subtitles. All right, all right. So now that I see that all of you've joined, we can begin. The agenda is set. Okay, we'll understand how to understand an RC passage, and then, of course, we'll apply it to an RC passage. Because, see, I can give you all the theories in the world, but unless you know the application, you'll not be able to attempt the RC passage in the exam, right? So, first of all, you should tell me this. What do you understand by comprehension? Yes. What is comprehension? What is it that I have to comprehend? समझना क्या है आरसी पैसेज में? Yes, tell me that. Hi Priya, hi Nafisha. So what is it that is expected of you? What exactly do you have to get from an RC passage? What do you have to understand from an RC passage? Comprehension, as all of you know, it means to understand, right? However, do I need 100% understanding of the RC passage? That is the question, right? If you get 100% understanding, nothing like it. Of course, that is the desired goal, yes. However, even if you don't, that's absolutely fine. Why? Because when you read an RC passage, let's say you're reading something from philosophy, the idea is not to master that topic on philosophy. The idea is to simply get a gist of this RC and an understanding of its structure. How has the author organized his or her thoughts, built his or her story, the argument, right? That's what I have to get. So even a 70 to 80% understanding of the RC passage suffices. Okay, so when you read and understand, primarily you have to capture the central idea, the gist, it's known by a lot of names. Okay, the central message, okay, the core argument, you can name it whatever you want to. Ultimately, the examiner is not expecting you to become masters. However, the examiner is expecting you to get the gist, right? So even an 80% understanding would be okay. All right. Now, coming to just a second, huh? Now, the next thing is that you have to get the passage structure. Okay, so what do you understand by structure again? Yes, what all comprises passage structure? Tell me. Yes, Let's see what you say, waiting for your responses. Otherwise, it will become a one-way lecture. Yes. What do you understand by passage structure? Hmm. See, every passage is a collection of paragraphs. Every passage is a collection of paragraphs. Sometimes it can be just one single paragraph also, but usually it's a collection of paragraphs. Okay. Now, why have those paragraphs been collected together? Because they are interconnected. They are interconnected. Okay. So let's say para 2 is elaborating or explaining what para 1 has said. Para 3 then contradicts a particular assertion that has been made in para 2. So it is contradicting some of what has been said earlier. Right. Para 4, okay, then let's say this contradiction presents a problem. So para 4 gives solution to that problem. Right. This contradiction presents a problem for us. Para 4 gives a solution to the problem. And the last para, let's say para 5, is finally giving some conclusion. Okay, to something that the author introduced in the beginning. So this skeleton that I just drew, introduction, elaboration, contradiction, solution, conclusion, this structure, how various paragraphs are interlinked, this is the passage structure. So you also have to understand how the author has built his or her story. And why is this important to understand? Because in this process, you will capture all the key ideas, all the important ideas of these paragraphs. When you try to find out, okay, how is this related to para 1, you'll first have to understand what it is trying to say, what is the key idea that has been presented here, then only you will be able to find out that relationship. Yes, so in this process you will grasp all the key ideas of the RC passage. Hope this makes sense to you. Okay. And yes, understanding the style of the passage, as Pratyush is saying, what kind of a passage is it? Is it a descriptive passage? Is it a narrative passage? That will aid your understanding of the passage structure. Because if it is simply telling a story, then there will not be probably a lot of arguments present in the passage, right? When I'm just telling you a story, I refrain from my personal opinion. Okay, at least I may let's say interpose it in one or two places, but I'll not opine a lot when I'm just presenting a story to you. So understanding that yes, this is simply a storytelling passage, that helps you to know, okay, there will be fewer opinions here. It will just be, okay, this happened, then this happened, then this happened, right? A sequence of events. Good. So these are the two things that you have to capture, that you have to understand. And I know that theoretically this looks very easy. However, the way we have been reading, let's say, if the way we were taught to read in our school, at least I was to get 100% understanding of things. And that actually impeded matters for me when I had to read a lot of text, right? Because if you aim for 100% understanding and you have to read a lot of text, you will spend a lot of time on it. And that's why you have to refrain from doing this in an RC passage also. You have to rather be focused on the central idea, on the broader picture, on the broader skeleton. Okay. All right, now just deciphering a little what central idea is, because different students understand different things from it, right? When I ask them usually what is the central idea of an RC passage, I get 7, 8 different responses, right? So let's just narrow down to what I mean by this word central idea, central message, gist. Okay, every passage out there in this world, okay, has some topic. It is talking about something, right? So for instance, if I talk about the Russia Ukraine war with you, I may be discussing its economic aspects, let's say, right? I may be discussing its economic aspects with you. My broad topic is the Russia Ukraine war, right? Now I may be discussing something specific about the Russia Ukraine war with you. So first things first, you need to understand what the topic is. What is it that is being discussed, that is being talked about, right? So if let's say you are someone who is afraid of central idea questions or who finds it difficult to gauge the central idea, just begin from here. पहले एक broad topic समझ लो, okay, it is about this thing. Fine. Then see this. Has the author presented any viewpoint in the passage? Regarding this also, the author may have presented some viewpoint. Okay, so probably the author has talked about, has predicted, let's say, what are going to be the consequences of this war. Let's say the author has focused on the economic consequences and given this opinion that the war is going to have adverse economic consequences, not just for these two countries, but for the entire Europe. So you see, once you identified the broad topic and then you delved a little deeper, you realize that within the topic also it was about something specific and there was an opinion of the author that was there. I am not saying that there will always be an opinion. ऐसा जरूरी नहीं है हमेशा ही opinion हो, right? So it may be simply the kind of passage where the author is simply detailing something to you. आपको बस कोई details दे रहा है, right? Or the author is simply telling you some stories. Right, so it could be that kind of a passage. So you have to isolate. Is the author simply, describing things to you without really giving any opinion, or is there any specific opinion that is present here? If yes, you need to narrow down. You need to understand this opinion. Okay. So the purpose could be just to give details or to give an opinion. When this is present, it becomes very, very important to isolate this, to understand this, right? And this opinion is in fact the purpose of the author behind writing this RC passage, behind writing that article from which this RC passage has been taken. So when this person set out to write this article, this was already in the mind of the person that he or she will talk about the adverse economic consequences of the Russia-Ukraine war on Europe, right? So the topic plus the purpose, when I combine these two, they become the main point or the central idea of the passage. Okay, topic is broader, purpose is the specific opinion or the specific details that the author captures. And when you combine the two, you get the central idea. The thing is that for understanding this purpose, you have to understand the structure of the passage also, right? Because the author's purpose is present in all the paragraphs that come, right? So the author would talk to you about the adverse consequences, not just in one paragraph, but probably in multiple paragraphs, that how there are going to be adverse consequences. So that is why it becomes important to understand the passage structure. The purpose is to confuse us, is it? Not really, not really. But yes, the purpose sometimes may be such that, whenever I read an editorial, so I make it a point that after reading the editorial, I also analyze it from my side. How much do I agree with this? How much do I disagree with this? This helps me build my opinions. However, when you are reading the RC passage in the exam, then the examiner requires you to not form, let's say, your own opinion, whether you agree or disagree with what has been said. The examiner just wants you to understand the author's opinion and wants you to stick to the passage, to stick to the RC, not apply your own personal judgments there. Right? So, for the RC passage, for the purpose of the RC, you have to stick to the author's opinion. Okay. Now, what do I mean by the passage structure? So usually, I'm saying usually here, every paragraph has at least one key idea. That is why the author has bothered to actually form it into a paragraph, because there's one specific thing at least that he or she wants to convey through this. There can be more than one key ideas also in a paragraph. It is also quite possible that there is no key idea in a paragraph. It is just an example paragraph, let's say, where the author has given an example in detail. It is supporting the previous paragraph which had a key idea. That is also possible. However, usually you will have at least one key idea in a paragraph. So when you are reading, just try to grasp what is the key idea of the paragraph. Now I can be very simplistic here and tell you, you know what? the opening sentence or the closing sentence will contain the key idea. If only matters were this simple. Okay, that the opening sentence and the closing sentence always contained the key ideas. They help you a lot, no doubt about this. The opening and closing sentences of the paragraphs are of a lot of help. But it is not always the case that the key ideas will be present here. So please read through the entire thing. Students ask me that in CAT, can they skip certain sentences? Can they skip certain paragraphs? No, the passage is not that lengthy anyway. In a 500, 550 word passage, if I'm framing five questions out of this, right, that means there is a scope to make a question out of every 100, let's say, words. So in that case, you need to have a thorough understanding, meaning that you can't skip anything. Thorough understanding does not mean 100%, but skip nahi kar sakte ho, right? So read through the entire paragraph and somewhere you will feel, okay, this is in the nature of an opinion. And this is why the author has perhaps written this paragraph. So isolate opinions or ideas from the supporting details. I usually cushion my opinion. I usually support my opinion with a lot of examples. Okay. Sometimes with a lot of reasons. So that is what the author also does. But those are simply supporting details. They are not the key opinion. हमें opinions isolate करने हैं या ideas isolate करने हैं, right? And some of them, and usually in a 500, 550 word passage, all of them contribute to the larger central idea. Okay, that is why they are there, to support that central idea, because of which I'm writing this. Right. So I hope this is clear to you. This should be your framework while reading an RC passage. It shouldn't just be that, okay, you saw an RC passage, you simply began reading it. You are, reading each and every sentence, trying to comprehend, getting confused in vocabulary words. That's what I've seen the students' default approaches. No. Okay. Be calm and composed and have a systematic approach to it. Also, before we begin, so we'll now begin the application. One thing that I want to say is that yes, the opening paragraph, the closing paragraphs, they are important, particularly the opening paragraph. They are important, but do not assume that you will find the main point, the central idea here itself. You may not. Read it carefully anyway. Why? Because you're just starting to read an RC passage, you are diving into something new. So if you read it carefully, it becomes easier to navigate the rest of it. Right? So read it carefully, but don't expect yahi mil jayega. Okay. As I said, if only things were this easy. Okay. So we will dissect this passage completely. Okay. I want you to read this paragraph by paragraph. And I want you to tell me, after reading both these paragraphs, that what is the key idea of this paragraph? What is the key idea of this? Okay, you could perhaps spot a sentence that you feel is the most important or is the key idea itself, right? So follow this approach, read these two paragraphs, and then let's discuss. This is how we are going to dissect this passage today. Okay, yes, let's start. Read, read. Let me know once you finish. Good, Pushkar. So now you have to tell me the key idea of each paragraph or the most important sentence that, you think captures the key idea. All right, others done? Nafisha, Priya, Kumaresan, done? Okay, Miss Unique says done. All right, all right. So let's have a look. Disengaged engineering students. Okay. So disengaged from what? You're on the right track. Disengaged from what, Pratyush? So the first paragraph is trying to introduce an idea to us. Okay, that today engineering students, as Pratyush mentioned, they are disengaged from something. From what? From the social dimensions of the problems that they are being taught to solve. Right. So the first paragraph is essentially introducing this idea to us that, okay, there is something called technical social dualism that is present in our teaching of engineering problems to engineering students. Okay, they are being taught that the technical and social dimensions of these problems are readily separable and remain distinct throughout the problem definition and solution process. Right? So, understanding this sentence was important. Okay, not that the rest of it is not, but this is particularly important. Okay, second paragraph. The author gives a very clear opinion in the second paragraph. Tell me that sentence where there is a clear opinion that the author is giving. Is the author saying that CAT, the technical ideals, is the best way of learning? Is the author saying that? I don't think the author is saying that. So, second paragraph has the author's opinion, which is here. Okay, so let's understand the second paragraph because one of you didn't get it. So, non technical parameters such as access to a technology, access, cultural relevancy of a technology. Is the technology that I'm creating, is it accessible to everybody? People from different socio-economic backgrounds, poor and rich, right? Is it relevant for this particular culture? Is it relevant, this technology, in an Indian context, let's say? Does it have any potential harms? So these concerns are not being paid attention to when we are teaching engineering students today. Okay, they are considered as something that is political, that politics will think of this. We don't have to think of this as somebody who's creating a technology. They are considered invalid in this way of learning. Which way of learning? This technical social dualism. Okay, but those technical ideals are at their core. Now the author says, what are these technical ideals? जो आप technical कर रहे हो, वो क्या है? Technical ideals भी क्या है? They are at their core social and political choices that you are making, determined by a dominant culture focused on economic growth. So you today decide that we are focused on economic growth, and that's why we'll focus only on low cost, on speed, on the ability to scale, and will not concern ourselves with, let's say, access, cultural relevancy, etc. So these technical ideals, the things that you call technical ideals, are actually your social and political choices only. Okay, where you are driven by economic growth for just the most privileged segments of the society. That's why you are ignoring the ones who are not so privileged. So now see this here comes the author's opinion. By choosing to downplay public welfare as a critical parameter for engineering design, when you don't give public welfare enough importance, when you downplay it, we risk creating a culture of disengagement from social concerns. Okay, so we are creating a culture where our engineers, they are disengaged from social concerns, from societal concerns. They are not involved in them. They don't consider themselves to be a part of them. Okay, so disengagement from societal concerns amongst engineers, which is the opposite of, the ethical code of engineering. Engineering also must have some ethics involved in it, right? And we are training them to be disengaged from these societal concerns, and hence this practice of teaching is opposite to the ethical code of engineering. Okay, so if you asked me to isolate the two most important sentences that I had to understand, I had to take away from these two paragraphs, it would be these two. Okay, all right, all right. Hope this makes sense now. Let's come to the next. Now, you have to retain whatever we have studied, we have read so far. You have to retain this technical social dualism, what it is, and you have to also retain the author's opinion, that what is happening as a result of focusing just on the technical parameters. Right? Now, let's read further. Okay. Read these three paragraphs. Again, there must be some important ideas there, some important sentences maybe that you need to remember, okay, that you need to understand, which are a part of the author's story. And read it and tell me what those are. Yes. Read this. Okay, great, Pushkar. So now again tell me, how does the author build the story further? What are the ideas that have been presented? In a very particular context, Pratyush. Social equity, yes, but in a very particular context, that of engineering solutions, the solutions that our engineers are providing today. You are very right. Done. So tell me, what are the important ideas that are there on this page, on this slide? See, medical devices are also designed by engineers only. Yes. So now the author comes to his or her field, that in my field of medical devices, ignoring social dimensions has real consequences, right? So then the author tells us about those consequences, right? I'm not saying that reading these is not important, but this is the intention, this is the purpose of the author now in writing this paragraph, to talk to you about the consequences of ignoring social dimensions while designing medical devices. Okay, so then the author talks to us about those consequences, and you can see they are like physical consequences here, right? uh, Adverse reactions हो सकते हैं लोगों को, isn't it? Then the author further says that, beyond physical failings, fine, this was a physical failing there. Subjective beliefs, when your own beliefs, they are treated as facts by those in decision making roles. They can encode social inequities. They can actually further social inequities, perpetuate social inequities, okay, and embed social inequities in them. So then the author gives an example of such a belief that is carrying on even now, right? Such a subjective belief of people. Then the author says that many technologies for systemically marginalized people have not been built. So first of all, see, we have what? We have incorrectly approved drugs. So we have physical consequences here. Then we see how subjective beliefs are manifesting social inequities. Then one whole new thing is that technologies have not even been designed for some people out there, those who are not the privileged people, those are not the majority perhaps, right? So गलत टेक्नोलॉजीज डिजाइन हुई हुई हैं, टेक्नोलॉजीज के एडवर्स इफेक्ट्स हो रहे हैं, और एक जगह तो टेक्नोलॉजी डिजाइन ही नहीं करी हुई है. So many technologies for systemically marginalized people have not been built because they were not deemed important. Yes. So so the author is talking to you about the consequences that take place when you do not consider the social dimensions of your decision making, right? And the author is talking about it in the context of medical devices, which of course are again designed by engineers, right? So these are examples here. This is also an example. This is also an example. I'm not saying examples are not important. However, you mainly need to capture, okay, here the author has talked about the physical consequences, here how some beliefs are leading to social inequities, and here how some technologies have not even been designed. Why you need to remember these markers? Because when you come to questions later on, right? So let's say there is a question about how subjective beliefs are leading to problems, okay, or there's a question about spirometers, and you remember that, okay, this was mentioned here when we were talking about subjective beliefs. You can always come back and reread this part. Yes, you can always come back and reread a specific area. That is absolutely okay when you're attempting a question. You can't reread the entire passage, you don't have that kind of time. Okay, so I hope we've understood this. Good, good, good. So these, if you asked me, these are some of the important key ideas that were present in this slide. Okay, ignoring the social dimension, subjective beliefs, technology is not designed, not been built, and yes, whether devices have been built sustainably. So introduces another angle now, sustainability, right? Now, let's talk about, these are the last two paragraphs. Read them, and now you have to very clearly tell me. I will not tell you what are the most important sentences here or what are the key ideas here. Yes, read. Good, Pratyush. Absolutely. And a very important one. Right? Good. One more is there. All right. All right. See. Now here, before I show you, of course, this was a major opinion that was there that social justice must be made core to the way engineers are trained. See, what are the words that can convey to us that okay, a particular line is an opinion, must happen, should happen. Okay, when we do this, we risk. The author in the beginning, in the second paragraph, said that when we downplay the role of social equity, the social dimensions, we risk something. So that's again the author's opinion that we are risking it, right? So pay attention to such words. Then after this is again an important idea. Why? Because the author has given two examples of it later on, right? How two professors are actually working to embed social needs in their pedagogy. So this is an important idea, and absolutely correct that the last sentence, when we design and build with equity and justice in mind, we craft better solutions that respond to the complexities of entrenched systemic problems. Okay, so these were the key ideas in these paragraphs, right? So let's just recapitulate this a little. Right. So in the first two paragraphs, the author first talked to us, introduced the idea of technical social dualism, right? Wherein we are ignoring, in the sense that technical and social dimensions of engineering problems are treated as separate, and the engineers today, the way they are being taught, they focus on the technical dimensions only. Right. Then the author says that okay, this is going to have an adverse consequence. We are creating a culture of disengagement from societal concerns, which is antithetical, which is the opposite of the ethical code of engineering, right? Then the author says that it has real adverse consequences, physical failings, social inequities, and not designing some technologies at all, besides ignoring the sustainability of technology. So the author gives four such negative consequences here. Then the author says that we must consider social justice. It must be made core to the way, in fact, to the way engineers are trained. And then the author shows that this is being done also on some level, and what is going to be the positive consequence of this. So this is the structure of this passage. Yes, if I have to give you a structure of this passage, just the structure of this passage, then the author first introduces an idea. Okay, the author then gives the negative consequence of this idea. Okay, so result of this, right? So basically, whatever the negative consequence was, what we risk actually, that they are disengaged. Okay, then the author gives some real negative consequences, that what happens as a result of this disengagement, what are the adverse effects, right? So the adverse effects, they are physical also in nature, right? They perpetuate social inequities. Okay. And what else were they doing? Some technologies are not built at all, besides ignoring sustainability. Then the author presents his or her opinion. So what is the solution then? What is the solution then, or what should happen? Right? Social justice should be made a core concern in engineering problems. It should be made a core concern. Yes, I hope nothing is being hidden here. Right. And the author then shows that this is already being done. This is being done. Okay. Some professors are doing it through their pedagogy, and what are going to be the positive effects. So this here is a rough skeleton of the RC passage. Okay. I have given you the links also between various paragraphs, right? And I have also given you the content as to what is being talked about. What are the key ideas, right? So this is how I understand the structure of an RC passage, and you must be thinking, oh, this is such a lengthy process. Where do we have that kind of time in the exam? The thing is, right now it seems a very deliberate process because this is probably the first passage that you've read like this. But gradually, as you get used to reading more and more RC passages like this with the focus to isolate the key ideas, gradually it becomes a very mental process. You know, this is called mind mapping, what I've just done for you. This is called mind mapping. You build this map in your mind only, right? In the exam, you build it in your mind. You've now drawn a map of the RC, right? Okay. So, the central idea of this RC passage would be, what do you say? If I ask you to capture it for me in a sentence, what is the central idea of this passage? That social justice must be made a core concern in engineering solutions because not doing so has some real adverse consequences, and doing so will actually lead to what the author says, that it will lead to better solutions that respond to the complexities of the entrance systemic problems. This is the central idea of this passage. So the topic plus the entire purpose captured through the structure. Okay, so I hope I'm making sense to you. Yes, I need some response. Let's attempt some questions then, if it is clear to you. Yes, absolutely correct, Pratyush. Absolutely correct. So, now the author, of course, made a number of claims. Claim means something that you assert to be the case, that, okay, this is what is happening, okay, or you give your opinion also. Your opinion can also be your claim, right? So, now you have four options here. You have to tell me what claim the author is making in the RC passage. Here you will primarily rely on elimination. Okay, read the option. If you think the author is making that claim, keep it in the fold. If you think the author did not make this claim, eliminate it. Pay attention to words that are extreme in nature, okay, and do not match what the author has said in the RC. Pay attention to something that is extra, that is completely false or is opposite to what the author has said. So pay attention to such options, right? Yes, tell me. Welcome, Pranav. Welcome. I'm so glad. Let's see what you say. Okay. Pratyush says fourth. Miss Unique, what do you say? Pranav says fourth. Nafisha? Someone appears to be in a very festive mood. Okay. That is good. Really good, Rohit. You're welcome. Nafisha, what do you say? Pushkar, I need responses. Come on, guys. Priya, what about you? Kumaresan, Hamza, Vinay. So I've got 3 4 so far, and all of you are absolutely correct. Fourth is the answer. Okay. Now, this is the exact opposite of what my passage said. Dualism means that you're not incorporating social considerations. Okay, you're just focusing on the technical part. You're treating these as separate. Dualism, treating something as two things, two separate things. The objective of best solutions in engineering has shifted the focus of pedagogy from humanism and social obligations to technological perfection. No, it is not the objective of the best solutions. It is that objective that, okay, we are focused on economic growth. We are just considering the economic and technical part of it. So it's not the objective of best solutions in engineering that has done that. Right? This is again incorrect, or you can even call it distorted as per my passage. 3. Engineering students today are trained to be non-subjective in their reasoning as this best enables them. Whenever you get this word, no, best, biggest, so these superlatives, they are usually options that can be extreme options. So you should become suspicious of these options and evaluate them carefully. So as this best enables them to develop much needed universal solutions? No. In fact, it enables them to focus on the technical and economic aspect. That's the main reason. So, eliminated, not something that the author has said. Okay, so distorted again, or you can even call it alien. The author has not said this. The only one that matches the paragraphs, the passage, the tone of the author also is this. Engineering students today are taught to focus on objective technical outcomes independent of. That means we are considering them to be separate from the social dimensions of their work. Something he stated right in the first two paragraphs. He or she or they, right? Stated right in the first two paragraphs. Okay. Uh, good question, Pranav. So Pranav is saying that, towards the end, the author does say that, things are changing. So can we say this today? Because yes, the larger trend is this only. The larger trend is this only. I understand your concern. We are saying some universities are working on this, right? So it is a work in progress. However, largely today, engineers are still being taught like this, something that the author affirmed in the first and the second paragraphs. Okay, so that is why. Besides, as I said, we eliminate. So when we look at the first three options, none of them actually is in consonance with the paragraph, is in line with the paragraph, right? सब उसके opposite जा रहे हैं. That's why it's only fourth that is at least in line, partially in line with the passage. Okay, all right. When can we expect the official answer? Ki visa, I am also waiting for that. Uh, can't give a date. I mean, it just depends on the ZAT authorities. Okay. So, Pratyush, the idea behind the scholarship test is to see, I mean, again, to test your aptitude, right? So, again, in our aptitude test, we ask you, we question you on RC passages. So, work on these, okay? Solve more RC passages. When you solve, let's say, about 5 6 tests, so that means I'm talking about 25 30 RC passages. After solving them, no, you yourself realize how to eliminate. So, through practice, you develop a technique that, okay, this was a little out of scope, that's why the examiner eliminated it, right? So you understand that framework, that the parameters within which the examiner operates, or eliminate kaise karte hain. You realize some of the common errors that the examiner, some of the common traps that the examiner will lay for you. So practicing RC passages is one, right? Then apart from this, verbal logic, which is para summaries, para completion, and para jumbles. Right, these three areas. To be very honest, your para summary preparation will be aided by your RC preparation also. Here you're dealing with a paragraph, here it's a collection of paragraphs, an entire RC passage. So practice some para jumbles, okay, in addition. Particularly because in CAT you are asked these without options, so practice type in the answer or without options, parajumbles, non-MCQ parajumbles. So if you practice these, right, you will definitely improve and you'll get more scholarship as well. Okay. All right. So Nafisha says 4. Nafisha's already answered, guys. Buck up. Read the question and tell me. You need not even go back or anything for this. Yes. And do like the session if you find value in it. Come on. Okay. Others, come on. All right. All right. We'll be coming up with a plan very soon, Ayush, for CET. Don't worry. For CET, then we'll come up with one for CMAT also, right? So don't worry. Very soon. Three. All right. All right. Four and three. I've got just three responses. Okay, no, four. It's three. All right. Uh, you are saying that. Let me just read this. So here we are saying that three of them are actually reasons that explain, that tell us that why marginalized people are being systematically discriminated against. Marginalized, those people who exist on the margins, that means they're not in the mainstream, they're not the majority, or they're not the privileged ones. So marginalized people are systematically discriminated against in technology related interventions. Three of them provide reasons for that. This is an easy question. See, racially based argument adjustments. So if they are racially based adjustments, right, and these racial differences were biologically determined, so this is again a bias, no, this is racial discrimination happening here, that you yourself have assumed this, that that people who are non-white, they are inferior, they have smaller lungs. So this is clear cut racial discrimination and eliminated. Then social inequities, the moment you use the word inequity, social inequity, again this talks about discrimination only. So why do you think that 3 is the answer? Beyond physical failings, subjective beliefs treated as facts. You are treating your beliefs as facts by those in decision making roles. They can actually embed, encode, and even perpetuate social inequity. Social inequity means when you are discriminating or when there are differences, right? So again, this talks about that. So 3 cannot be the answer. Fourth, but those technical ideals are at their core social and political choices determined by a dominant culture. So whatever we are saying that, okay, these are the technical parameters that we have to consider, right? Currently, engineers are being said, you focus on the technical parameters. So those technical parameters, who has decided them? The humans only have decided them. And they have been determined by some social and political choices that we are making. What are those social and political choices? Oh, I am going to focus on the economic growth. Economic growth for the majority or for the most privileged segments of the society. Right. So the moment the word privileged comes here, that means you are prioritizing some people over the others. You are discriminating. Yes, even this is a reason. Even this is a reason. So the one that is not a reason for the marginalized being discriminated is one. Okay. Why? One talks about sustainability, environment. It talks about the environment. It does not talk about marginalization or discrimination, right? It talks about waste. It talks about greenhouse gas emissions. So this is a matter of environment and not about social discrimination, racial discrimination. Hence one. Okay, good. Hope you've understood this. You had to go through elimination. Elimination is the best way to attempt RC passage questions. Okay, let's have a look at the third one. All of the following are examples. Please pay attention to this except. Okay. In the exam also sometimes it is capitalized like this. All of the following are examples of the negative outcomes of focusing on technical ideals in the medical sphere except. Okay. So that means three of them are the negative outcomes. One of them is not a negative outcome. You have to tell me that. Okay, that is the answer then. What do you say? Okay, all right. Okay. One of them is not a negative outcome of focusing on the technical ideals in the medical sphere. So I've got two responses which say 4. Continuing calibration of medical devices. Calibration is adjustment. Okay. Continuing adjustment of medical devices based on past racial biases that have remained unadjusted for changes. Right? Is this not a negative outcome of focusing on the technical ideals? Okay. I understand why you're saying 4, but how do you justify 1? Isn't 1 distorted? One says incorrect assignment of people as female at birth. What does this part mean? Incorrect assignment of people as female at birth. Are we assigning incorrect sex to people? Let's say a male has been born. Are we calling males females? Are we doing that? Has the passage said any such thing? No, the passage is simply saying that the dosages are usually designed keeping males in mind. The dosages of various medicines, they are not designed keeping females in mind, right? So it's not that we are assigning an incorrect sex altogether, that we are calling males females. That is not happening. Okay, so one is quite cleverly, cunningly distorted by the author. See the sentence that was mentioned in the passage. So please go back to the passage if you have any such confusions. Okay, you are allowed to, you should, it ensures accuracy. Drugs are incorrectly dosed for people assigned female at birth. These days we don't use the term, let's say, men, women, or females, males, because we don't assume on our own that this person, let's say, if he or she was female at birth, then she is going to call herself a woman. We don't assume it these days. That is why, if you want to refer to the fact that by sex this person is a female, then you will call the person somebody assigned female at birth, right? So this is a terminology that keeps this consideration. It's a considerate way of addressing people, because it's not always the case that someone who was born female would want to call herself a woman. There can be a gender, sex, there is a word for it, that they don't align actually, when they don't align for a particular person, right? So that is what was there, that drugs are incorrectly dosed. ऐसा नहीं है हम assign ही कुछ और कर रहे हैं उनको sex, right? So one was quite distorted. I am sorry. And that's why this is the answer. Now, 2, 3, and 4 are negative consequences because we are so focused on the technical ideals. See, we are giving incorrect drug dosages. I just read that part, right? Then we are not doing research. We are not developing some technologies, remember? So, those three things that I wrote in the structure, these are those three things only. Those three negative outcomes. See, when I wrote the structure there, sorry, did I delete that part? What is the central idea? 1 minute. Here, yes. So I wrote these three negative outcomes. No, physical, incorrect dosages, social inequity, subjective beliefs. Our subjective beliefs are creeping into the design, and we are actually not adjusting machines that need to be adjusted. Then we are not building some technologies at all. So these three are captured by 2, 3, and 4. ठीक है? Okay. So the answer is option 1. ठीक है? Okay. So right now it will take you some time to understand why a particular option is incorrect, why the others are correct, or vice versa, right? But do devote that time after attempting RC passages. This will help you improve for your future RCs. Okay? You should know the logic behind each and every option. Let's come to question 4 and tell me the answer. Yes. Last question for the day. I understand that some of you are exhausted. Last question. Yes. Read each and every word of the option carefully, because sometimes the author might try to trap you in those words, like in the previous question. Yes. So Pratyush, we did mention sustainability, medical waste, didn't we? Venus s 3, 2. Now this is a sort of it's a mix of an inference question. You have to understand the author's viewpoint plus sort of a further application question, because we are giving you some strategies and we are saying that which of the following pedagogical strategies will the author approve of, right? So it's these options are uh, I understand that it has terms like local priorities, right? You might be thinking local priorities kahan baat hui hai in the passage. However, see this. Here you have to be very, very clear with the viewpoint of the author, one thing, and you have to read each and every word of the options very, very carefully. The author is trying to trap you in the options here, right? One is the answer because read it. See, moving towards technical social dualism. Would the author want you to move towards technical social dualism? What is technical social dualism? When you treat these two as separate, when you treat social dimensions as separate and focus just on the technical dimensions. So the author would never advocate moving towards technical social dualism. And this is not the definition of technical social dualism, the one that has been given, where social community needs are incorporated. Then you will not call it dualism. No, dualism means you are treating them separately. So this is internally inconsistent. Internally ही contradict कर रही है option अपने आप को. And that's why this is the answer. The author will be fine with sustainability. Why? Because the author has raised this concern. when talking about medical devices, that the medical industry generates so much waste. We are not concerned with whether we are building the devices sustainably or not. So I understand this is not the core concern, but it is one of the concerns that has been raised. And the author would go approve of a pedagogy that takes into account sustainability. Design that is based on the needs of communities. It's all about taking into account social dimensions, right? So yes, when you respond to local priorities, you use local knowledge. Okay, what conditions exist in this locality, what kind of machines do I need to design? So author will definitely approve of this. Not the answer. Four, a more responsible approach to technical design. Absolutely, the author talks about, designing machines responsibly, which is rather than just a focus on speed. The author doesn't just want you to focus on things like cost and speed, but also on designing machines responsibly. So it's just one that is internally inconsistent and one is the answer. So Pranav, then it will not remain a dualism. That's the point. Once you incorporate the social needs, it will not remain a dualism. Then there will be, then we can't use this word. Dualism means when two things are separate, like the body mind dualism. Some people think that our mind is something that is separate from our body. So that's called a body mind dualism. Okay. Hope this is clear. We've spent a good amount of time on this one RC passage today. I want you to practice at least one article or one RC passage like this. Okay. So you can do this, that practice one article like this every day. How can you do that? You must be thinking there are no questions after an article. You just have to read an article, okay, understand the key ideas of all the paragraphs, and then once you are done reading the article, close it, try to recapitulate all the key ideas and form a central idea. On the first day, you may not be able to recapitulate some of the important key ideas. That's okay. Okay, you can always go back and see what you have missed. On some, let's say on the third, fourth day, you might be able to capture all the key ideas, but you may not be able to still form a central idea out of that. That's again okay. Keep trying. Then on some day, you might be able to both, but you may realize that I am not able to locate where various key ideas are located. Right. तो ये वाला की आइडिया मुझे पता तो है पैसेज में कहीं है पर कहाँ है वो नहीं याद एग्जैक्टली सो देन वर्क ऑन दैट अल्टीमेटली you are working on your comprehension, whether you've understood all the key ideas or not, and your retention, whether you retain all the key ideas or not. Right? These two is what you are working on. Hope the session helped you. This is your homework. One article every day you have to read like this. Do solve, let's say, a couple of RC passages also in a week using this approach right now, because this is the concept building stage. That's what we are working on, building comprehension. This is our CAT 2023 comprehensive program where we teach you all these things and much more, right? And we do offer a lot of practice material also to you. We do offer assistance for the second stage as well, right? So you can enroll and the link is in the description box. Then this is our workshop that is going to happen on the 14th, where we'll discuss with you, Saral sir will discuss with you how to manage CAT with job or studies. Okay, a very common question that students have. And yes, those who are interested in taking the CMAT, if you want to get a feel of the exam, this is an open mock, all India open mock, free mock for everyone, which will be live from 21 to 29. Again, the link is in the description box. Right, stay connected. I'll see you with another session tomorrow where we'll talk about RC passages again. We'll go a step further than today, right? And yes, do like, subscribe, share, follow. I hope you've already subscribed and do download our app for various CAT 2023 sessions. A lot more sessions here on the app as well. Free. Okay. Sources of good RC passages. See, there is no one source. Previous year papers are your best source. Apart from that, when you take mock tests, you will be exposed to them. Practice tests, so subscribe to some practice tests of or mock tests of a particular institute. Then apart from that, I would say once you've exhausted your previous year papers, some of the GMAT RCs are of an equivalent level. Some of them. Previous year papers, when I say, I mean all the management entrance tests. CAT also, ZAT also, right? Both of them will help you for your CAT prep. Okay? All right then. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. Welcome. Bye.